The Hedgeless Horseman here. I hope you're all doing well. It's February the 13th, 2025. First of all, thanks to the sponsors. Markets today, gold is up, a new all time high today, I think. Silver, obviously not an all time high. Copper is doing actually very well lately. Crypto is still basically grinding, and I had some interesting discussion with a Bitcoin Maximalist today, so I'll do a customary bit of a Bitcoin rant to start off with. Uh, First of all, let's just take a step back. I was going to say, and look at Bitcoin. Well, I was talking to a Bitcoin Maximalist, and I'll get to that soon. Yes, I think 90. He said he had 98% in Bitcoin, uh, and like almost always, every Bitcoin maximalist have a bunch of ideas. Like publicly they state they own Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is worth buying because debasement, inflation. It's supposed to be safe. They come up with hundreds of different reasons, and you've seen the narrative of Bitcoin basically change. I mean, a few years ago it was supposed to be like a world currency, and everybody was talking about, or every Bitcoin maxi was retweeting, it's like, look at me paying for coffee with Bitcoin, stuff like that, like it would be a world currency. But that again, it always kind of changes. You just come up with whatever. The narrative is always something, obviously, that is supposed to get people to buy even higher. And this particular guy, he said that he expects, well, he doesn't need investing because Bitcoin takes care of that. And he started off by saying that he owns Bitcoin because he's tired of government stealing from him, something like that. And then you kind of know, and that's why I kind of, you know, start asking some questions to see if he actually would come to the conclusion that no, in reality, you don't really care about any of that. You just think you're gonna get rich from it from here on out. And he said that he expects it to average compound 50% per year from these levels, and that it's gonna surpass gold or hit gold parity in 2030. And it's like I just reminded him, it's like, since if you look at compounding, it's like you should at least look at a, let's say, full cycle, like bottom to bottom or top to top or something like that, because obviously from here to here you have extreme negative compounding, from here to here you have extreme positive compounding, but to get a like average annual growth rate, you're supposed to measure from the you know a cycle top to a cycle top, if you know what I mean. Otherwise, it's again going to get so skewed. Here, it's going to be the worst investment. Here, it's going to be the best investment. So if we just look at some prominent tops, it sounds, or I know a lot of people up here. I mean, if you bought down here at cycle lows, you're up a lot. Especially if you bought back here, you're up a lot. So it's like anybody who bought, let's say, these lows. I mean, this is obviously a very good return as well. And I'm talking like bottom ticking almost. Really good returns. And again, most of the big money that people have made in Bitcoin are the people who bought Bitcoin, uh, you know, 8 years ago and back. Because if we just look at, since 2017, 18, if we look at the compound rate, and we actually adjust that, we take a peak to peak to peak. You could also obviously just use bottom to bottom to bottom to bottom, etc., to get us a similar result. Then Bitcoin has been compounding 25.2% per year, which is really good. I mean, that's great. That's like, more than Warren Buffett averages today with Berkshire, when he has so much money. I mean, if he said himself that if he had a small amount of money, he expects to be able to compound at 50% per year, and I totally believe that. But that's also the best investor of all time, basically. And interestingly, since the 2011-2012 top, it's only up 39% right now. That's a compound rate of 11%, something like that. So, I mean, to me, if we look at, okay, how high is the top here? So it's 239% from this top to this, and from this top to that top, it's 58. So I mean, it's to me, or if we just look at the numbers, obviously it's compounding at a lower and lower rate. But in his words, he expects it to compound at 50% per year. So I asked him, it's like, okay, so do you expect it to just increase in compounding, even those like Hawk 2 and Scottie Pippen are already in? So it's like, Bitcoin is far from being unknown. It's far from being unloved, as we can see. It's I mean, it's pretty much one of the hottest things there are, and it's at 2 trillion in market cap. So I mean, it's just the opposite of something that's niche. This is very, very the peak of mainstream, basically. Bitcoin is. And I asked him, and he's like, oh, well, ChatGTP said the projections are 30 to 50% compounding. I mean, Jesus, if somebody's using ChatGTP to project, it's like, oh, ChatGTP, what am I going to make in Microsoft for the next 5 years? And it comes up with a number. It's like, I mean, if that doesn't, some alarm bells doesn't ring if somebody's using ChatGTP for investing decisions, especially projections, then I don't know what will. And he said, and it also said that, it's been averaging 70% over the last 5 years. But again, it's like he doesn't seem to be accounting for the fact. I mean, then it's like, oh, you're whatever, taking 2002, which was a low, to a high, and then you look at the compound. I mean, again, that's not how it's supposed to go, because otherwise, between here to here, that's negative compounding. So I mean, that skews things immensely. Either it's too low. I mean, if you take whatever X amount of years from here to here, then you'll get one compounding result. If you take the same period from here to here, you'll get a totally different compounding result. It's like my junior portfolio. I mean, it has, now and then it has like 50% declines. And then it rallies, hundreds of percent. So what's the compounding? I mean, you have to look at a very long trend line to get an idea. It's not like, in the 2016 rally, the portfolio went up from the bottom 500% in 8 months. So that's that's how juniors compound, 500% in 8 months, which is like, I mean, obviously, stupid high. I mean, if that would be the actual compound rate, you would have $1 trillion within, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years. So that's obviously a mistake. Anyway, also I would like to point out, it's like, I'm not a trader, at least not a good one, but I have heard people who do a lot of tea and whatever. It's like they say that a bottom is an event and a top is a process, basically distribution. And it's like, if we just look at if I knew nothing else, if I heard somebody say, hey, describe a distribution top, I mean, this kind of very much looks like it, like almost broken down many times, gets pumped up, and breeds hope again, sells off, but isn't allowed to. So it's just, I mean, it's kind of being kept above this line. Question is like, is this too much on obvious top information that is actually not a top? Maybe, but it sure looks like a top. I mean, it looks like this one here, pretty much. You have a rounding top. It's like, okay, you know, again, it's like a bit higher highs here, so people buy in thinking it's gonna break out. So it churns here for, you know, X amount of months, like it's doing here, and then it's like shoop, and it's like 35, 45, runs again, but it's like this was the basically the top for the next. I mean, it took what, 2021. Yeah, I guess it took 3 years for it to get back here. So as always, I don't know what's gonna happen. But yeah, so here's Wyckoff distribution theory. Anyway, so I just want to show, because I think this is very interesting. And it's the same with, you know, you're looking at juniors, for example. If you see, I mean, how do you tell if something is overhyped or overpriced or underpriced or undervalued, whatever? Like, look at how investors are thinking, in a sense. And so, yeah, I mean, he responded to this meme I did. I guess these are all the, yeah, book titles. So it's like, well, if you, whatever, read, I don't know how many books this is, but then you'll get it. Because it's kind of always the same. That's like, according to Bitcoin Maximalist, it's always that, I mean, again, that it's a store of value, protection against government. It's like the perfect thing for everything, and that anybody is like, if you're bearish, you just don't get it. So it's like, when, what did he say? I think. Yeah, okay. It's like, yeah, studying. I mean, that's the funny part. Is like, and that's not a small amount of guys like this. It's like, I mean, me like Bitcoin. I mean, you can tell he's, you know, all in Bitcoin, and everybody else who doesn't go all in Bitcoin because they don't think it's, you know, different this time or the best thing since sliced bread. It's like, it's always because you're uninformed, and you know, few are willing to take the time and learn. But it's like, at face value, just him saying that he has 98% in Bitcoin, you just immediately know that he has no idea about, let's say, position sizing, risk reward, or anything like that. So it's like, just by default, just by hearing that, especially in one asset, I mean, I have pretty much 95% of my money in juniors. So at face value, that's kind of the same thing. But it's not like I have 95% in one junior, and it's the hottest junior there ever was, and for it to go up from here multiples, it's got to do what nothing ever has done in history, which is basically supplant gold as the premier store of value. That's basically what these guys believe. That's like, for the first time in 5,000 years, some man-made algo is going to overtake gold. So that is basically the longest stretch in the history of finance. Because so far, nothing in 5,000 years have been able to do that. So that's not our first in terms of this cycle or in this civilization or in this monetary system. That's the first in human history or human civilization, basically. So talk about a long shot. Of all the long shots you could possibly try, this would be it. But again, it's like, it's me and everyone else who just doesn't get it because there's been 40 books promoting it. And it's like, and just to skip forward, it's like, okay, how, you know, I mean, I'm gonna just probe and see if I can, you know, get to the actual reason why he owns it, if you know what I mean. So I just went with, why do you own it? I own it because I don't like being stolen from. With Bitcoin, I don't have to trust anyone. Government and central banks can temporarily manipulate the spot price, but it's very cost prohibitive. There's nothing they can do to stop it. My savings are in Bitcoin exclusively. So when he said savings, it's like, okay, I'm assuming that's like, we're not talking, oh, I have a bunch of investments, and then I have, instead of buying gold for 10%, I have 10% in Bitcoin or something like that. So I had an idea that's like, he's starting off with, like they almost all do, talking about a bunch of rational, in a sense, reasons to own it. I don't like being stolen from. Okay, so and then he goes on to, I don't need to trust anyone, yada yada yada. So it's like, do you believe this guy? Literally, it's like, yeah, that's his main issue, and that's what it's been. He doesn't like being stolen from. So, do you think this guy had like 90% of it in gold before Bitcoin was around? I doubt it, right? I mean, so you can kind of tell, well, you can surmise that this is kind of, I'm not gonna say copium, but it's like he's obviously, like they always do. I mean, you try to project or get people to buy something, right? I mean, you want to believe what you're saying, in a sense. You want people to agree with you and whatever, because if people agree with you, then that's why people buy tops to begin with, because, like, oh, it looks like everybody's suggesting this is worth a lot and it's going higher. That makes me feel good, yada yada. So then it's like, yeah, so you say your money in Bitcoin in cold storage, so there's no exchange. Do you do any investing or something to create wealth? I mean, he didn't answer the cold storage, because if he's like, oh, it's about trust and it's about being stolen from, we've seen what happens with some of these exchanges. So I just, tried to probe there. He didn't respond to that exactly, so I'm assuming he doesn't have it in a cold storage. So again, he's saying one thing and doing another. When I started buying in Bitcoin, it was 10% of my net worth. Over time, that has grown to 98%, mostly from appreciation. I have some real estate and few other investment, but it's pennies in comparison. So I mean, if we only take that at face value, so let's say, I mean, 10%. If I don't know what happened to the rest, but let's say he's up 15x or something. Assuming some of the other stuff moved as well. So it's like, yeah, okay, you made a 10 bagger or 15 bagger. That's great, obviously. But now you're all in Bitcoin. And we don't know. I mean, he started talking about something later that he I don't know, has a firm and it's like 100 million under management or whatever. But it's like, I don't see. I mean, I don't see how it tracks. I mean, how many people put 10% of their net worth into Bitcoin? It's like, how many put 10% of their money into one single junior, for example, or even gold? I mean, typically the ones that are wealthy, they wouldn't put 10% into almost anything. Not a single. I mean, they could have like 40% stocks, but that's not 40% in one stock. I have some real estate and a few other investments, but it's pennies in comparison. And Bitcoin and Bitcoin outperforms them all. Correction, there is, it has potentially outperformed them all at this top. And so that is kind of, I was trying to get him to basically, admit to the real reason. So then I probed with, but you said you own Bitcoin because you don't like people stealing from you. You're that afraid of stealing, so you're 90% into Bitcoin. Now it sounds like you're in Bitcoin because you think it will continue to, as he said, outperforms them all, as in it will go up in price, like everyone else. Yes, basically, FOMO, greed. And then he goes on with monetary debasement is theft, and they can never stop printing. Bitcoin is monetizing because of that, and it has a long way to go. It's only 10% of gold. I can imagine a better savings vehicle. Number will absolutely go up, no doubt about that. And then again, I just pointed out, okay, so now you're back to theft again. Okay, let's say you're right. It's still crazy to be all in. Gold has done its job for 5,000 years, yada, yada, yada. And then he comes back with, turns out the idea of not being stolen from is very popular. His evidence of that is, of course, because Bitcoin is not too far from the all-time highs, right? Okay. Physical gold was the best way to save until self-custodied Bitcoin. Total addressable market is hundreds of trillions. Okay. Historical compound is around 50%. I think gold parity happens by yada yada. So it's like that's what I actually like. I mean, I enjoy the psychological aspect, and it's like, I mean, as an investor, you have to be on guard in terms of your own greed. It's like, are the reasons you're buying this, are they actually rational, or do you want something to happen and then you come up with reasons, if you know what I mean? Because now it's getting more and more obvious. Like, I mean, it's just crazy if this guy, like he says, he believes that Bitcoin is up here and has done this because people are afraid of being stolen from. Do you think everyone that's in Bitcoin that, oh yeah, that was their main issue and all of them have gold? Gold is at basically record low ownership, I'm pretty sure, in the West. So it doesn't seem that people are that afraid of debasement and getting stolen from. You could buy gold, I was going to say, bury it in an unmarked grave or something, and it's going to be stored there forever. So nobody's going to be able to steal it. And it's physical, so it's not like you can't just forget your Bitcoin address or something gets hacked or Satoshi jumps up and it's like, oh, I'm recoding everything, or there's a 51% attack or whatever it's called, or forks and yada yada. So it's like you can, again, it's like you can tell quite easily. It's like most, if not all of, especially these Bitcoin maximalists, is like it's all about greed and making money. But when they try to sell other people and including themselves on it, they come up with all these rational reasons why Bitcoin is up. Because obviously nobody who's in a bubble wants to think it is a bubble, so you come up with it. It's like, no, it's about fear of deflation. It's about being better than gold or whatever. Or it could just be the fact that, as he says here, total addressable market is hundreds of trillions. Historical compounding is around 50%. I think, yeah. So what he's saying is like, it's like a aware, let's say. It's like, oh, I invested in a company and the market potential for this company is like, oh, I come up with a new whatever product. It's like, oh, the pharmaceutical sector is worth whatever, $2 trillion. If we can capture 5% of that, this stock is going to be worth a lot. That's nothing to do. It's like, oh, I'm just afraid of somebody stealing. No. Here it shows. So he's up maybe 10, 15x or whatever. It's like, yeah, junior miners can do that as well in a bull leg. And then he expects compounding again, even though I just showed it's like compounding has been decreasing. It's only been compounding at 11% since the 2021-22 top. But he expects it to go at 50% compounding rate because he put in a ChatGPT prompt that said, oh, it's been averaging whatever since the last 5 years. So it's like he has I mean, I might sound harsh, but it's like he has no idea what he's doing in a sense, and he's kind of fooling himself in again, it's like publicly saying, oh, I'm just afraid of theft. Yes, that's why I'm all in something. It's surely because of theft, not because of greed, because he thinks, oh, this could reach hundreds of trillions of dollars, and he expects it to compound at 50%. It's like I said here, no, I think most are like you, that they simply think Bitcoin is going to go up a lot and average 50% compounding. Who wouldn't be, right? If somebody said, it's like, hey, this thing here is going to compound at 50% whatever, forever, because the market potential is hundreds of trillions and we're only at 2 trillion. And I go all in. Is that because I'm that afraid of somebody stealing from me, or debasement of currency? You could buy farmland, you can buy S&P 500, you can buy metals, you can buy whatever, basically. You can buy, land. That's real value and protects you against inflation and debasement. But obviously it's not even diversified, it's just all in on Bitcoin. And it's like, not much of this makes sense, especially again if you look at his. It's like, I'm not fooling myself. When I'm so heavily investing in juniors, for example, I am taking risk in exchange for reward. Whereas like the Bitcoin Maximalists believe they found the first free lunch that ever existed. Basically, that Bitcoin is as safe as gold, basically digital gold, gold 2.0. But not only that, and over the long term, I mean, gold basically just keeps its purchasing power. It just keeps up with inflation. Except for sure, there are events where it's like, okay, the Weimar Republic or a currency dies or whatever. All of a sudden, in fiat terms, the gold goes exponential. But it's like, you can, after the reset or whatever, or compared to the global marketplace. I mean, if you live in Sudan and the currency crashes and you have one gold coin, and I don't know what the currency is in Sudan, but it's like, oh, that's worth 15 trillion Sudanese dollars or something. You can't go to, I mean, if you go to India the day after the currency collapse, you'll still get as many cows, I was gonna say, as you did before your currency collapse. So from a global perspective, it's not like your purchasing power is changing that much. In fiat terms, relative to everyone that was only in fiat, you kept your wealth, and the other ones lost their wealth because their fiat wealth went to zero. So it's like, it's not value creating, it's protection. And over the long term, it simply keeps up with inflation. But it's like, to have something that, again, according to him, is so super safe, you don't have to trust anyone. It protects you from the basement. It protects you against inflation. And, oh, by the way, the sweetener is that it's compounding like you were Warren Buffett. I mean, again, this is something that would be a first in history. That you had something that is risk-free and is just perpetually going to go up. And it's not ringing any alarm bells for this guy, which tells you something about how clueless he probably is when it comes to markets and investing. He has no idea. He believes this free lunch is real. And of course, then he's going to be all in, and which, pushes up the price. Even if he doesn't sell, it at least, if he sold some, it would push down the price. Okay, so he has, I don't know, let's say he has a few Bitcoin. So he's not putting them on the market, which means there's not going to be a decrease in price because he's not selling them. And maybe he's been buying, so that pushes up price. And then he gets other people convinced. It's like, who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't want to have something that is risk-free and compounding at 50% per year? Which it isn't, but just the idea. It's like, sign me up. If I thought gold was forever gonna compound at 50% per year, even with inflation being, let's say, 5% per year, whatever. So it's like literally one of the most absurd real wealth creators, plus it's risk-free. Never happened before in finance. Never been such a thing as a risk-free, huge return lunch. Like I said here, so it's not even a simple store of value like gold, but are the safest gold, but a perpetual wealth creator as well in real terms. Quite the ass, and no wonder you're on. Gold appreciates too. That's a bad thing somehow. Again, it's like he has no idea. He has absolutely no idea. Yes, gold goes up in nominal terms. And why does typically the gold miners don't make that much money when gold has gone up? Because inflation has gone up. So it's not if gold went from whatever it did, in the last big bull market and then peaked out in 1900. It's not like, my real wealth went up that amount of times. No, coffee might have gone up, whatever. Oil went up, your energy bill went up, everything like that. But it's not been like averaging 50% per year. Yeah, and again, goes to ChatGTP. Life is going to keep getting cheaper and cheaper. And I just try to, and here it comes with my field manager is a firm in the, I don't know, Milwaukee or something, I guess. 100 million on outperform. I don't know what this is. I've outperformed them 100x by sitting on my hands. Again, it's like, I don't see how that makes sense. I mean, he said he put 10% of his net worth in Bitcoin, and he has added, and now it's 98%. It's like it would be even higher than that. It would be like 99 point whatever, basically. So it just doesn't really. I think that's correct, at least. Yeah. Anyways, like it just doesn't track. This is pure greed, and I think, yeah, I mean, he had some funny. Oh, and again, it's like this. And I just said it's like, almost. I try to get him to like, okay, think about. I mean, if you're 90% all in, and you take 8% off the table, that could come in handy one day. But it's like, nope. I mean, he's not prepared to do that, and that is by default greed. If you have 98% in something, it's because you're not even okay with, like, I'm greedy as hell in the real asset category. It's like, I know I'm greedy. I'm not pretending it's like, I'm in juniors. I have such a huge position in juniors because it's risk free and I don't need to do anything but hold it. And my junior that's at 100 million could go up to $5 trillion or something like that. No. And I own different juniors because I never know what's exactly going to happen. So, but he has 98% in according to him, in one single thing. That swings like obviously crazy. So it's like, okay, if we just have a regular correction here, so his net worth at the lows, and assuming that's not even, it's like, so he would be okay seeing 77% of his net worth go up in money heaven, in a sense, paper heaven. And if he's even wrong at the same time, he's what? I mean, I think in the long term, Bitcoin is toast. So that means if he holds it long enough, I think in real terms, he's going to be toast. And in nominal terms, it's compounded at 25 and it's decreasing. I cannot come up with a portfolio that would, how should I put it? Really do not want to hold as these guys. To me, this is absolute crazy. It's some of the shittiest risk reward I've ever seen, especially for him personally. It's not just Bitcoin itself. It's that he's all in. It's like position sizing is obviously off the charts. And then it's like, we have different ideas of risk. I hear you, but my thesis, again, it's like, my thesis has only proven more and more correct over time. It's like Buffett says, let the winners run. It's like, oh my God. Buffett also says that crypto is absolutely worthless and that he wouldn't pay, or Bitcoin, and he wouldn't pay $20 for all the Bitcoin. Obviously, he would if he could buy it and then sell, if you know what I mean. But it's like he's meaning that the intrinsic value of Bitcoin is zero. Basically, that it's not going to be around forever. So, which just makes this even more ironic. And then I just said that because I can understand, again, it's like, how do you, like he says, my thesis is only proven more and more correct over time. Why? Because prices, Bitcoin has gone up. I don't know what thesis it is except for, because anything can go up in price. I've been in stocks, it's like, take Novo for example. I mean, that went up, what, 10, 20x. Then I looked really, really right. Until I looked really, really wrong. So, at the top in that case, according to, I mean, if you just take what he said at face value, it's like implying that, oh, just because price is up, the more price goes up, the more right I am. That's why he said instead of 10%, he sticks with 98%. So that's just absolute brilliant, an absolute brilliant strategy. And I mean, it's just ironic. It's like how on earth does he think a bubble forms? How on earth does he think people think at a top? That's exactly how they think. Oh, it's gone up so much, so I gotta be so smart, so I'm not gonna sell. I'm actually gonna keep it at whatever level and actually add. Because obviously, if he bought in at 10%, let's say that 10% was down here. So down here, when it wasn't that well known, when it wasn't that famous, when Hawk 2 and Scottie Pippen weren't in, then it was only good for 10%. Now, when it has gone up a shit ton, and everyone and their mother knows about Bitcoin, and Hawk 2 is in, and Scottie Pippen is in, then it's like 10 times better. Because with his position size, that is what he's telling. That's what he's saying. If he has 98% today instead of 10%, which he had, it's not like he had 98% here and went down to 10%. No, he actually thinks it's at face value up to 10 times a better buy up here than it was down here. And people wonder why everybody buys tops. So again, he's using price to make him look right. And one other rebuttal I tend to have with that kind of thinking is like, okay, if you can just look at price, and it's just price that you're looking at to inform you that you are right and confirm that you're right. I mean, if Dogecoin, which was created as a literal joke, and that's been acknowledged by the creator, no utility, it was created as a joke, if that can reach $80 billion, what does it prove if Bitcoin can get to $2 trillion? Really, I mean, when you really think about it. Bitcoin doesn't have that narrative that it was created as a joke. The narrative is that it's better than gold and it's going to go up forever. Completely different narratives. Why can't that go up to 2 trillion if a literal joke, which is not even supposed to have any utility, can reach $80 billion? Those two things can exist in the same bubble, in my opinion. And then I point out, it's like, understandably, it's very hard to get anyone to change course in case that someone is looking at plus 6,000%, let's say. That makes total sense. It's like, I have friends who are in Bitcoin. I have a friend he might be all in Bitcoin, but I mean basically all in. I see no hope. I haven't even tried to get him to sell, take some profits. I mean, that's been kind of life changing for him, I believe. Uh, but there's just no way. I don't see how I could possibly. I mean, he bought in a long time ago. He might be up. Let's say he's up 15,000%. Him and anybody else that has held for so long of a time looks like an absolute genius. So, and they're gonna use that, obviously, those returns, because if you bet everything on one thing, that goes up, bubble or not, you're gonna think and look like a genius. And if that's the only thing you're, I mean, good at, because this guy, like he says, he doesn't even do investing. So he has no plan B. So he has to believe that Bitcoin is the only way forward for him to continue to make money. If he wants to get richer, Bitcoin is the only option as he sees it. How do you get somebody like that to sell? It's pretty much impossible. On paper, he looks like a genius. He doesn't have any plan B or options. He hasn't learned how to fish, in a sense. Because if you learn investing, you can go across any sector. There's always some sector that's cheap, basically, like we're seeing in commodities right now. But he's betting it all on one fish, and that he doesn't even need to fish. And I just point out, I mean, the very same reason many people sell low, because if they have been in a bear market for years, they've been told, I missed out some words, by the market that they've been wrong and look even wronger every year it goes lower. I mean, think of again, why do people sell at the depths of a bear? If you bought in 2020 the juniors at that high, and it goes down for 4 years, are you gonna be like, no, I think these are cheap, and buy? And then after you bought, it's like, I don't know, for 100 weeks straight, and let's say you just bought whatever the sector, like the median junior, so you're at the bottom, you're literally down on everything. Even if you average down, it's like every single buy you ever made over a 4-year period in this scenario, you're down on. Do you think it's easy to buy into that when the market has been telling you with its price action that you have 100% failure rate on every single buy? Who on earth is expected to there obviously there are some. I mean, I'm buying all the time. I'm not necessarily down on every single one, of course, to the bottom, because some outperform. But still, it's like, that's not a lot of people. My point is, it's not a lot of people that can get pissed in the face by the price action for 4 years straight and continue to believe that they are right, because the price action is telling him that he's that you're wrong. And wrong every single time. 100 buys, you're wrong on every single one. 300 buys, wrong again. It's like a perfect track record of failure, in a sense. And how many are supposed to believe, oh, this is actually right? I mean, if you understand the cyclical sector, that's actually what you should be doing. It's like, I'm just going to average down, because sooner or later, maybe every single, or at least 50% of the buys are going to be in the green, and some buys are going to be in the green by multiples and multiples, and then I'll make money. But that's not obviously a lot of people that can do that, because there's not a lot of people. I mean, everybody pretty much hates juniors and think it's impossible to make any money, but that's because they can't sell low and they buy high. So again, that is just another version of this, that he's using the price action as of late. I mean, I doubt he was saying that here, for example, or if he bought here and we were at here, he wouldn't say, oh, my thesis looks correct based on the price action. No, he's saying that now, of course, and that gets him even more convinced that he's right. I mean, that's basically the opposite. If I take any junior, it goes up 1,000%. Now, let's say nothing. I mean, for better or for worse, juniors actually have fundamentals. But let's just pretend there's like you have a stock. It's like they're doing an exploration story. It's like, oh, it could go up a lot, but they don't have anything yet. But they've started drilling, and the price just goes up and 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 up. If that company, before a single assay is at $1 billion, before a single assay is out, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to sell here, I'm actually going to add. Or it's like, I bought in with 10%, but I'm going to keep 98% of my entire net worth in it because it's up 1,000%. So I think they're going to make a discovery worth $3 billion. That's why I'm holding it. And my thesis is proven correct because of the price action. I'm up 1,000%. I'm a genius. Of course, I should have even more in. 10%. Forget about that. I'm looking super right. I mean, it's like every bubble. Until every bubble peaks, everybody looks smart. You can look up the tulip bubble or the Nasdaq bubble, or yeah. I mean, let's look at, where is it? If we pretend we are in this period, and that's the funny thing as well, it's like that was actually a bubble, but it doesn't mean it doesn't go higher, let's say, with time, but because there's, new companies, etc. So it's like it's not Bitcoin because it's just a bunch of different companies, and some obviously die, and many died after the bubble peaked, but there were other companies to take its place. So that's why it's like an index never dies. But still, if you're here, let's say you bought in 10%, you put 10% of your portfolio in Nasdaq here. It's up 781%. Obviously here, you're gonna look like an absolute genius. Absurd returns, or whatever, take here. Absurd returns, and quite a short time frame as well. Jesus. Quite a short time frame as well. So if you're in the camp of like, well, the price action is, the higher this goes, the more my thesis is correct, that whatever the price is, it's going to be worth even more. Okay, pets.com. Yeah, it has whatever market cap. That doesn't matter because it can still grow to trillions of dollars or whatever. So it's like in your mind, it's like, yeah, it's been going up like this. So I mean, hey, why would I be? I should be even more. I should bet even more. Why? Because I'm up here. I'm up this much. The market is saying that my thesis is super right. I'm super smart. I much rather have a lot more here, 98% of my net worth. Down here, when or whatever, take even lower, when it's actually, let's say, been a downtrend. Down here, well, no, I'm not. I'm just gonna go with 10% down here because I'm not really looking that smart, because maybe I bought here and it's actually down. Up here, when I'm looking super right and I have sick returns, yeah, that's when I'm gonna keep 98% in it, because it is just enforcing my belief that every single buy I've ever done is right, and I'm a genius, and things are just getting better and better. And with the compounding that's been in this run here, I'm just going to project that forward. So obviously I'm not dumb. I want to, even if I got rich, I want to become a lot richer. And at this compounding rate, it's, it's basically the same thing. That's why this is how bubbles are formed. This is why prices go up a lot, even though it's like, if you're a value investor and you look at internet companies here, it's like, okay, that's a major sell, absolute major sell. They're super overvalued, and yes, boom, then compounding was zero over the next 15 years. But who cares about that? I mean, I'm looking smart here, and the compounding is looking absolutely great. And the smarter I look, the more money I've made, the more sure I am that this is the place to be, until you actually absolutely faceplant. So yeah, I mean that's what I find interesting about this Bitcoin and crypto mania. It's like a lot of people don't seem to think that they're even gambling. They legitimately think that they found that for the first time ever in financial history, there is such a thing as a free lunch. It's risk free, gonna go up forever, and especially compounded 50% per year. And everybody else has missed out because they haven't read 40 books on the wonders of Bitcoin and this new free lunch that's never been that's never existed ever. Yeah, I mean that's the easiest way I was gonna say to spot if it's a bubble. Just look at uh, just look at just look at how the people who are in it and super bullish how they think. It's like whatever position size, expectations, just projecting it forward, fooling themselves with coming up with a bunch of quote rational reasons to own it, but in reality it's just that no, it's just up a lot, so I'm gonna have more money in it because now I'm even more convinced about how much money I'm gonna make, even though the big move has already happened. I mean, yeah, I don't know what else to say other than that. I mean, it is just absolutely the typical human behavior. But again, just to believe that, well, since it's gone up and not died, that means it's not a bubble. You never know. Nasdaq might peak one of these days, and you'll spend 15 years waiting for the index to get back. But if you're at peak waiting after peak past performance, of course you're gonna get grinded. I mean, it's like literally if he sits through one typical Bitcoin bear market, so it's down, let's say 77%. I mean, it's not too far off from square one, for a time being at least. And then, given by the compounding from peak to peak, the 2021 peak only, I mean, it's only up 49% since the 2021-2022 peak. So if he suffers a 75% paper loss from these highs, it goes up to another peak. Maybe that's 3 years forward and he'll be up 49% from today. But he expects it to compound at 50% per year. That's a huge difference. Yeah, so this took longer than I thought actually, so I actually was gonna talk about a lot of other stuff, but I'm gonna wrap it up here. Already 53 minutes, goddamn. Yeah, I can rant for sure. I mean, closing thing, not investing advice. I don't own Bitcoin. I don't own any crypto. I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. This guy might be right. Whatever. But at least, I mean, first of all, it's just that's being 90% all in. It doesn't matter what it is. That's just absolutely crazy. And yeah, I thought it was a good way to just again see how the human mind works when it comes to what clues you take from price action. There's like the more it goes up, the more right you look. The tendency to project recent, let's say, or past performance forward. The fallacy of thinking that, again, just because something bad hasn't happened yet, it means that you're not taking risk. And being peak optimistic after a monumental run and all of that, and they actually have more exponentially more exposure after a run up than you had before a run up. So there's a lot of things that goes into it, because let's face it, I mean, crypto or junior stocks or whatever, it's still the human mind. Uh, I mean, the human mind doesn't change. So you'll see the same kind of things in juniors as you see in crypto. It's just that it's, basically greed and fear, and again, confirmation bias, etc. So it's like, yeah, I'm not saying crypto necessarily gonna crash into. I might be wrong. Maybe crypto becomes the new gold or whatever. I highly doubt that. I think it's a huge bubble. If it wasn't a huge bubble, I don't see how the risk reward can be good. I mean, it's already again decreasing in terms of compounding. Central banks are buying gold; they're not buying Bitcoin. And yeah, there's just way too many risks, and it's way too volatile, and all of that. I mean, from a trading perspective, sure. I mean, if it's down 75%, I might, and I don't think it's completely dead. I'm buying some one day. I doubt it though. It's like if I had even 1% in Bitcoin today, I would feel like a total risk monster, a pure gambler, because there is no margin of safety. The only thing you're betting on basically is that somebody's going to buy it higher, and you can tell why it has gone higher again, because you have people like this who operate kind of the same way, and he's not unique. There are thousands or millions of people who think like this. The more it goes up, the more sure they are that they're doing it right. The more they made, the more greedy they become. So if you get other people to think that this free lunch where you can compound 50% per year with no risk really exists, anybody would buy that. I mean, again, it's like that is the definition of a free lunch. Something that is quote risk free and just goes up and up and up forever. That would beat everything. That has never existed, and I don't think it exists. But price can go up by people. What they say: price is what people are willing to pay. People are willing to pay for it now. But what happens later? What happens in 10 years? What happens? I don't know. Still, yeah, I think it's just again interesting facet, and again, not investing advice. If I mean, I would just say it's like, think stuff through. I mean, this has basically all the hallmarks of a mania mentality, because this is just huge. Oh yeah, it's like somebody says, it's the new reserve asset. Again, it's like you come up with, you tell yourself and everybody else all these reasons. It's the reserve asset, it's this and that. But when it comes down to it, he's actually 98% in Bitcoin, because that has done the best, and he doesn't. I mean, like he said, he doesn't need to invest basically. So it kind of tells you that it probably is never been a good investor. So he's betting it all on Bitcoin, basically going up forever. Because let's face it, if he thought Bitcoin was gold and only really held its purchasing power, he obviously wouldn't be 98% in gold. No, he's 98% in Bitcoin because he thinks he can get rich from it. End of story. Regardless of all the other stuff he says to make himself feel, I mean, basically to copium, so he can mentally cope with taking so much risk. In his mind, he's telling himself that he's not taking risk. Then it's just prudent, quote, investing of being 98% into Bitcoin. That's something I would probably need to do myself if I was ever 98% in something. I gotta believe that it's basically the safest thing ever. But now again, in this case, I'm and that goes for pretty much every Bitcoin maxi, at least at these prices. Like, no, it's greed. But for you to be able to hold such a huge position, you have to tell yourself and tell everyone else how safe it is, that it's the reserve currency, that you're holding it for rational reasons, against debasement, against inflation, because you don't trust anyone, etc., etc. So, I mean, that's a sales pitch to yourself and everyone else, where in reality it's just disguising the human feeling of greed and wanting to have more money. Because again, he's unwilling to go down to 90%. What does that tell you? He's basically all in. He's basically all in on one single trade. And he can't. I mean, if you at face value what he's been saying, it's like, no, he's so he doesn't he's so afraid of people stealing from him that he can't put 8% into S&P 500 or whatever. So it's, I mean, that's just bullshit. Anyway, thanks for listening. Have a good one. Bye bye.